All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Boss is awake with us right now. He's ready to go. Thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you for waiting patiently as the intro does what it does. Today, we're talking about 2024 and how it could be a potential turning point for PlayStation. Now, obviously, this topic, it can go in many different directions. And I think a lot of people have their opinions, obviously, their strong opinions, I should say, about how PlayStation has done so far this generation, how they've done in 2023. And I want to obviously acknowledge that. We're going to talk about that. That's going to be a pretty extensive part of this conversation. You're saying the stream is looking crispy. That must be pretty good, right? Yeah, so I wanted to ask you guys because we've been having these technical difficulties. You're seeing a difference. It looks a lot better. Good. Good. Yeah, I figured something out. I figured something out, all right? And I put it into effect today. And I didn't want to say anything cuz I wasn't sure. I just figured it would let it speak for itself. So, good. Hopefully it stays this way. What do I think of the Valhalla DLC? It's awesome. I mean, I don't know that there's much else to be said other than they did it they they did it again. Santa Monica did it again. Yeah, so there's a couple things I want to acknowledge here before we get into this conversation, uh, in depth. First off, James McCaffrey. I just learned that he passed away. Um, I don't know if he passed away today or like yesterday, but for those who don't know, James McCaffrey did the voice. He is the voice of Max Payne, and if you played Alan Wake 2, he also did the voice of I think Alex Casey is the name. It's basically Max Payne in the Alan Wake universe. Um and yeah, it was pretty sad and unexpected. I think he was 65 years old. But yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that and basically give a shout out to James McCaffrey, man. I've always loved Max Payne, and when I think of Max Payne, I immediately think of his voice and his line delivery, and I think he brought the character to life. I mean, Max Payne 3, I like the original Max Payne games, but Max Payne 3 in particular is like one of my all time favorite games. And he did a phenomenal job in that game. And I really did enjoy his performance in Alan Wake 2 as well. So, what's to me, what's even sadder about this news to hear of his passing is that Max Payne 1 and 2 are being remade from the ground up, and I was really hopeful that James McCaffrey would be able to reprise his role as Max Payne again, but unfortunately, it seems it's not meant to be. So, yeah, rest in peace, and shout out to again his work as Max Payne, man. But to shift gears here into a completely different direction, I want to also highlight this because we're gonna dive into this conversation. I'm just giving it a couple minutes, letting people kind of file in. And before we get into it, I came across this from VG Charts. I don't know how accurate VG Charts is, but they say here 2023 worldwide console sales through November. So basically from January to November, PlayStation 5, 17.92 million, Nintendo Switch, 12.55 million, and Xbox Series X and S, 5.64 million. So holy shit, dude. Holy shit. PS5 and Nintendo Switch killing it. PS5 in particular doing really, really well, almost at 18 million for the year. And yeah, I don't know dude. I do not know what's going on with Xbox, bro. That is they're not even at 6 million sold. That's wild. But that is what VG Charts is saying. Again, I don't know how accurate they are. I don't know if they overestimate or underestimate, but It's a big year for PS5, absolutely. And it's interesting to think about that because that's kind of going to be part of this conversation. How did PlayStation do in 2023? Oh, you know what? Really quick before we move on, Remedy Entertainment just posted this because we were just talking about James McCaffrey. I'll just read this to you. They said, "We are deeply saddened to hear about the passing of our beloved friend and collaborator James McCaffrey, the iconic voice of Max Payne and Alex Casey. His remarkable talent gave life to our characters and left an enduring impact on our community. Our hearts go out to his family." So, yeah, there you go. That's what Remedy Entertainment had to say about the passing of James McCaffrey. And because he did Max Payne 3, which was from Rockstar, I wonder if Rockstar is going to put something out there as well. Rockstar Games, I imagine they will. So, yeah, there you go. Yeah, sad news. I know some people are just joining and just realizing we're hearing about this news. So, yeah, definitely sad. But on a more positive note, we have a NSFW Nico deciding to join the membership community. He joins Greatness Awaits. Nico, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it. You're saying Rockstar just tweeted. Oh, okay. I'll check that out really quick, and then we'll move into the main topic of discussion. But thank you so much for becoming a channel member, man. Look forward to your exclusive perks, and yeah, man, we have some previous episodes of the Members Lounge. Okay, yeah, so Rockstar did just tweet. They said, "Rest in peace, James McCaffrey, the inimitable and commanding presence who brought Max Payne to life." And they actually put a photo here of him doing some voice work, I guess, for what was Max Payne 3. So, yeah, really cool stuff. It's good to see them honoring him. But, yeah. And we have Corey Landiga. Corey, the legend Landiga, follows up. I can't read it. I can't read the name that quickly. A NSFW Nico. He follows him up by dropping 5 membership gifts. Guys, let's get some W's flowing in the chat for Corey Landiga.
Appreciate
doing
it.
some heavy lifting already. Brings us up to 6 members on the day. Good stuff, Corey. Thank you so much for always being supportive of the community and of the channel. And yeah, this will be a good opportunity for me to just let you guys know how you can support the content. Again, being here, watching it, whether it's live, after the fact, thank you so much. Do me a favor, hit that like button. If you enjoy the discussions, if you enjoy the conversations, hitting that like button is the best way to let me know. 3 ways you can support me directly. Number 1, become a channel member. Number 2, consider gifting channel memberships. And number 3, consider donating a super chat. Ask a question, give an opinion, make a statement, anything in between. It all helps tremendously. So thank you to everybody who makes this possible. Today, we're going to try to hit a goal of 25 members. Let's see if we can end up doing that before the end of the stream. And yeah, with that being said, we are going to dive into this conversation. How is 2024 going to be a turning point for PlayStation? Well, I think it really depends on who you ask, right? Even when I just put out this stream and I saw people conversing with each other in the chat, I see people saying that PlayStation is already doing amazing. You know, what could they really do next year to top themselves? I see other people saying that no way, PlayStation is nowhere near doing what they need to be doing, or nowhere near their peak, I guess you could say. And I kind of expected this, right? When we talk about what Sony could end up doing in 2024 with PlayStation, again, there are many different directions it can go in. But there is a singular direction that, for me, stands out the most. And it would be, in my opinion, a pretty significant turning point if this is the direction that Sony ends up going in. And I have a good feeling that this is, in fact, the direction they're going to go in. And it all revolves around one thing, and that is new game announcements. Okay? When I look back at 2023, and I don't know, I'm not sure if this stream and my conversation with you guys and my discussion, I don't know if this is going to serve as my year in review for PlayStation. It might end up being that, as well as looking ahead. But when I think about 2023 and I look back to January all the way till up to where we are now, to me, there is just a major red flag. Um, and that red flag is not like, oh, they did nothing or everything they did was bad or there's nothing exciting. It's not that. It's simply they didn't announce new games that the fan base cares about or the fan base would want to see announced, right? Like that I can't say that they didn't announce any new games. That would be a lie. That would be objectively false. They did announce new games, but the red flag really comes in the form of the new games that they announced. Well, first off, there wasn't many. There was about 3. And second off, it's like these are not the games that PlayStation fans want to hear about. These are not the fans that are the games that fans are waiting to hear about. And when we think about 2024, this is where we can see Sony basically do a complete 180, depending on how they want to approach it. Figuratively literal, a member for 3 months. He says you can usually get a solid impression of sales from VG, but the best November in history for any console in Europe with 1.7 million. PlayStation 4 peaked, or the PlayStation 4 peak was 1.28 million. Wow. So are you saying that the PS5 in Europe sold 1.7 million, and that is like the highest sales record for Europe? I'm assuming that's what you're saying here, figuratively literal, and it honestly I believe it 100%. I believe it. Sony's absolutely killing it, like absolutely killing it in Europe, in particular. I mean, they are really just. It'll be really interesting to see just how far they can really go. But worldwide, they're doing extremely well. But the level of dominance in Europe is something that that I don't think we've seen before ever. And again, we can thank Jim Ryan for that. But figuratively literal, appreciate that, bud. And it's kind of interesting, right? I mean, that's part of the conversation as well. What is it about PlayStation in 2023? Why were they so lacking in terms of new game announcements? I mean, do they just not have any games in development? Do they not have anything to show fans? Is there just nothing ready to show? I mean, I think it's a possibility, certainly, that things were just not ready to be shown. But let's face it, this generation, when we point to the things that Sony has done right and the good things that they've done, it just doesn't really do PlayStation as a whole justice. And I feel confident in saying that. And the reason why I feel confident in saying that is because we know what PlayStation as a whole, when they really are on fire, what they're capable of doing, what they're capable of delivering. And it's not to say that they've been like well below that. And see, this is where I think the conversation gets a little bit more nuanced and complicated, where some people end up checking out because some people, I think, just want to say, listen, PlayStation is in a bad position. They don't have anything good. They won't have anything good, and it's not going to get better. And I just like when I see people with those takes, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but it's like I'm not so sure that you really were ever that into PlayStation. And I know that sounds like a lot to kind of throw somebody's way, but I really mean that because it's like I don't know how you could be a PlayStation fan and look at the last 3 years and feel like there was nothing good or hardly anything at all, or that Sony has barely moved the needle. And to me, that is where the conversation veers into pretty much ridiculous, nonsensical territory, like like fanboy territory, where it's like that's the kind of stuff I would expect to hear from, like, again, fanboys on Twitter or something that clearly just have an axe to grind. But I think what is fair to say is that PlayStation has not, they haven't been in ideal form, right? Like they could do better. We know they can do better. And I think 2023 has been a kind of highlight for that, where 2020, the launch, they killed it. 2021 was a pretty solid year. A little bit light, but understandable because it's just, pandemic. They just had a crazy launch lineup. 2022 is a very strong year as well. But 2023 seems to be the year where they kind of No, they kind of, I don't want to say lost their way. I don't think that they lost their way, but you could just tell that, man, things are in motion and changes are occurring behind the scenes, and we're just kind of left in the dark. And when Sony finally did decide, you know what, we're gonna reveal some stuff to you, it didn't do it. You know, it didn't get anybody excited. Kyle Film with a super chat and a 6-month milestone chat. He says Sony marketing is different this generation. We got a solid year with lots of games, but Sony never announced any other games. Xbox, as an example, their 2020 showcase game, most games still haven't come out yet. And then you continue by saying, and because of this marketing, it created an illusion that Xbox is doing better, but in reality, Sony actually has more games that you can play. Yes, so this is very important, I think, to highlight, because that's the thing. When I say that 2024 could be a turning point for PlayStation, I think it insinuates to a lot of people that, well, what is it that they have to turn around? Like they have been doing well. They have been putting out games. They have been pretty consistent thus far. Maybe not perfect, but certainly consistent. And that's the thing. When I say a turning point, the turning point isn't, man, Sony isn't making games and they haven't released games and it's been a drought and we need more games. That's not the turning point. The turning point is actually kind of on the other end of that, where there's been a drought of new game announcements. And I think you're correct in that Sony has approached the marketing very differently this generation, where they seem to play everything much closer to the chest, and they seem to be very comfortable with kind of laying out games that, okay, maybe the furthest away is like a game that's coming out maybe 2 years from now. Maybe that's the widest gap we provide, except for maybe something like Wolverine. Wolverine, I think, is maybe an exception. Again, like they did kind of formally announce The Last of Us multiplayer, but even then they were like very careful, where like they didn't want to really talk about it too much and they didn't want to really show anything of it just in case. And, clearly we see what happened. But you're absolutely correct when you say that basically if you go back and you look at a lot of the game announcements that Microsoft made, people were very much rallied behind that, where it's like, oh, they have all these games, but it's like it took so long for those games to finally come out. Some of them, when they did come out, didn't really land the way that they were expected to, and it's just, I think a perfect example of this is like you look back at 2019, the Game Awards 2019. Was it 2019 or yeah, it was 2019. The Xbox Series X was announced, as well as Hellblade 2. And Hellblade 2, is apparently finally going to come out in 2024. And it's just, this is the reality of game development now in the AAA space, or if you're trying to really take care of a project and keep the quality bar as high as you can, the reality is it's going to take a lot longer than it once did. And I think we're just kind of feeling the effects of that. But that's the thing, Kyle. I think you're just kind of pointing out here that, well, hold on, Sony, they dropped 3 massive AAA PlayStation Studio titles in 2022. Like all throughout the year. I mean, Horizon Forbidden West, Gran Turismo 7, God of War Ragnarok, and that's crazy. Like I know I'm not trying to like bring up 2022 as if that's really relevant right now. Like 2022 is relevant as we're going into 2024. I think it's relevant to an extent, and it just shows like this is what PlayStation is capable of doing when everything aligns, right? And the thing is, we had to go through 2020, 2021, where there were games, but it was just kind of, there was this, it came in waves, it came in waves, and it just kind of, the waves got higher and higher, and then they come down, and obviously that's when we finally get a year like 2022. And that's why I think 2023, things have not been ideal necessarily, right? Spider-Man 2, well, I'll defer this to you guys. What do you think about Spider-Man 2? Do you think Spider-Man 2 alone was enough to carry Sony through this year, where their first-party output has kind of waned a bit. And while you guys answer that, we have Michael Lynch. Thank you for the $10 super chat, man. You're saying you were right yesterday. I don't want Xbox dead. Just game ass. It leads to lazy developers. I want Xbox developers creating games that are worth buying. I mean, I get I can understand that. You know, I don't know that I fully agree that it leads to lazy developers. I think it leads to, the way I view it is, a Game Pass model is more likely to lead to more AA games or like smaller scope games, because it's a sub service that's meant to be fed constantly, right? And so because of that, I imagine that developers that are making games for that model, you know, I think it does kind of call into question, like, do we want to make this a $300 million game? Do we even have to? Like, is that really necessary? And I think the answer to that, honestly, is just maybe. Probably not. Like, truthfully, you could probably get away with a high quality AA game, but feed that high quality AA game, like, 4 times a year, 5 times a year if possible. And the bigger AAA games, like the really expensive AAA games, I mean, yeah, they're gonna try to have those too, but I'm kind of in agreement. The one thing I've always said about the traditional model is that it does command that level of quality. It commands, like, you can't, Sony's games can't just be AA. Like, they can't just be 50, 60, 70, 80, even $100 million budget games. They just simply can't. The standard is too high now. And I don't know that the ceiling needs to keep going higher and higher, but, it's like when we think about Wolverine, for example. I mean, the level of quality that the PlayStation fan base expects from that game is extremely high. Like, no cut corners, no bullshit, triple anus all the way. That is that is what PlayStation fans expect from a game like Wolverine. But you could kind of see how, if Sony were to launch Wolverine into PlayStation Plus, I'm not going to say that they would purposely lower the quality, but they would likely lower the budget. And with the lowering of the budget, it could lead to certain aspects of that game having to be dialed down a bit. So yeah, I totally get where you're coming from, Michael, and I'm in agreement. This is why I'm just not a huge fan of that of that type of model. But I just want to say real quick, because I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but I just want to say real quick, I still do firmly believe that PlayStation and Xbox, regardless of what their business model is, the way you get people in the door, whether that's paying $70, buying a console, or subscribing to your service, you need to have quality. You do. Like, even if you are going with a smaller scale and scope and AA, like, the quality has to be there. If it's not, you're not going to get people in the door. You're just not. So I will say, like, regardless of how much you're asking people to spend, you can't just put something low quality out there and expect people to be okay with it. But you're saying Nintendo didn't even try out subscription service? Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, look, when it comes to PlayStation next year, they have a golden opportunity. And I think they're going to take it. I think they're going to at least try to take it. And that golden opportunity comes in the form of, all right, you have a PS5 Pro coming. Your showcase last year didn't do it. You have no roadmap. If there was ever a time for Sony to say, you know what, we've been holding back, we've been maybe too quiet, we haven't really given the fans what they expect in the form of announcements, let's go. Like, let's fucking do this thing and let's do it right. Let's get back to proper form. This is what Sony can do in 2024. And I don't want to say that they can do it like easily, but it's like the timing is right. The timing should be, I mean, they should be primed next year. And again, that doesn't mean, well, Sony, you've been sucking, so you need to stop sucking next year. No, it's Sony, you came out this generation absolutely swinging, and you clearly did some damage because, I mean, if you look at how well the PlayStation brand is doing right now, you look at how well the PS5 is doing, it's like, yeah, you guys clearly did some damage. You achieved your goal, but there just comes a point where, again, man, like 2024, I know I sound like a broken record. I understand that, and maybe I will continue to sound like a broken record until it changes. But we do not know literally anything about PlayStation beyond March 22nd of next year. I see somebody asking what's my opinion on Rise of the Ronin and Stellar Blade. I think they both look very promising. I think they both look good. And interestingly enough, Rise of the Ronin is the game that that's the furthest game. That's the game that's furthest out that we know of. Anything beyond Rise of the Ronin, Sony didn't even make a new game announcement at the Game Awards. And I don't think they're dumb. I think they know exactly what the fans are expecting at this point. Not only that, I mean, Sony also is well aware that if they want to continue to achieve the level of success that they have with the PlayStation 5 console, I just talked to you guys about November or January through November console sales and how the PS5 is absolutely cleaning up. I understand that might lead to a mentality of, well, what's the rush? Why do we have to announce anything? Why should we put that pressure on our studios and our developers? And I get that. And I can get behind that to a certain extent. But to me, the PlayStation Showcase we got this year was the most complacent I think I've ever seen PlayStation since I really started kind of covering them in depth. And I don't even know that it was necessary. I don't even know that it was, you know what, let me take that word back. It's not complacency. The term I'm trying to use here is out of touch. Let me put it that way. That was the most out of touch I've seen PlayStation since I really started covering them in depth because I was rallied with the fans. I knew exactly what the fans wanted. We know what we wanted. And we didn't get anything close to what we wanted. It was a long show. It was a big show. There was a lot there, but we just didn't get what we wanted. And you guys know that the biggest question mark I was left with after that show was when we kind of saw like Herman Hulst coming out and celebrating it and just like completely ignoring the fans. And to be honest, like we haven't really heard from them since then. Like, yeah, we had a state of play in September. We saw them at the Game Awards, but really we haven't heard from Sony. Like that's all they're doing is just showing us stuff we already knew about and, a little surprise God of War DLC, which is great and goes a long way. But that comes from Santa Monica, And so next year they have to come out and they have to turn something around here. They have to come out and they have to deliver what the fans expect. And I think January, okay, you want to release The Last of Us Remastered Part 2 or The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, that's fine. That's cool. I don't really have a problem with that. February, you want to drop Helldivers 2, you want to drop Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, sounds damn good to me. I mean, February, I'm really excited for February. It's going to have a lot to play. And then in March, you want to follow up with, oh, by the way, here's Rise of the Ronin. It all sounds good to me, Sony. Like, please keep that up. Keep feeding us because we're eating good here. But that's just it, right? Once we look beyond Rise of the Ronin, the question becomes, well, what now? What next? And if you ask me, I think it's fairly obvious what comes after Rise of the Ronin. I think what comes after Rise of the Ronin is Sony's gonna fucking come out and drop some bombs, man. Like, because like, my question at this point is, how could Sony not drop bombs? Right? How could they not drop bombs after pretty much 2 years without dropping any? How could they not? It's impossible. It's not. It. I think it's reasonable to think that, well, maybe they won't have as many, or maybe they thought some of their live service games would be bomb drops, but they're actually just going to be like complete flops. That's a possibility, yeah. But I put Ghost of Tsushima on my thumbnail because it's like, dude, the time has come, man. Well, the time is coming very soon. Where is Ghost of Tsushima 2? We know you've been cooking, right? Like, we know this. When's it going to show up? You said a similar thing anticipating the last PlayStation showcase. Well, obviously, yeah. Because everything I'm saying now was true then, too. It's still true. And that just goes to highlight that the turning point, it has to, like, it's because you have to place your bets. You do. Metaphorically speaking here. I mean, I guess you could literally place your bets on this if you wanted, but that's up to you. But metaphorically speaking, like, you have to place your bets. Do you believe PlayStation going into next year, or do you not? Do you see failure, or do you see success? If you're at all into this stuff and you're paying any attention, what are you betting on? And I'll tell you right now, and I get it. Maybe I'm like kind of a meme at this point where it's like, oh, well, if MBG said it, the opposite's going to happen. I get it. But I'll tell you right now, like, truthfully speaking, if I had to place my bets on, do I think Sony's going to succeed next year and really kind of, again, reach that turning point and get back to proper form, or they're going to continue to just like go down and down and down and down, my money's on no. Sony knows what they're doing, man. Like, they've been doing this for a long time. They fuck up sometimes, yeah. They have some screw ups sometimes. It's just part of the industry. No one's perfect. No company, no publisher, no developer's perfect. But to me, it seems like whatever issues they may have run into, they've course corrected as quickly as they could. And that's the thing, man, is we look at a situation like what happened with The Last of Us multiplayer. And it's not good. It's bad. But I think people look at that and they're like, well, that must mean, well, yeah, that must mean all of their studios are having that problem. You're saying they don't even have a CEO. Yeah, but that's the thing though, D. I know it is kind of funny to think like they're going to turn it around without a CEO. I get it. But it's not like Jim Ryan leaves and, oh, well, Blue Point's game, I guess it just doesn't exist now. It doesn't, like, that's not how it works. The new IP that Sony Ben's working on, Jim Ryan leaving doesn't have an impact on that. And honestly, Jim Ryan leaving seemingly had no impact on The Last of Us multiplayer either. If we believe Naughty Dog, then it just seems like that was their decision. Like, we're not releasing this game and we're not supporting this. That was a Naughty Dog decision. Granted, Sony had to approve it and say, okay, and not push back against it or, kind of push it on them. But I think this is this is important because it's not like we're seeing other PlayStation studios coming out. It's like, I'll tell you right now, if next week, well, it wouldn't be next week because it's Christmas, but if like early next year, Sucker Punch comes out and says, yeah, guys, we had this massive Ghost of Tsushima live service game in development and we decided to cancel that and we're going back to single player, then I would be like, it's over. Like, guys, okay, this gen's over, bro. Like, this gen's over, but it's an isolated situation. And I do think Naughty Dog's situation is relatively isolated, and if not, we'll find out. But I just have a difficult time believing that, again, come next year, Sony has to have a showcase next year. I have a difficult time believing like they're going to think that they can come out and be like, okay, guys, here's an update on Concord and Fair Games and Marathon, and here's like a Wolverine trailer, and that's it. And they're like, okay, and see you next year. Yeah, no, that can't happen. Like, that just literally, people would not, PlayStation fans would not accept that. Just like they didn't really accept the last show, they certainly wouldn't be able to accept that. There needs to be a change in how they present this stuff, in what they're laying down on the table. MBG, there will 100% be at least a state of play in February or March for the new fiscal year. It is a law requirement for shareholders. No, I believe that. We'll get a Wolverine trailer tomorrow. Oh, shit. Yeah, you're right. We might. Kyle Film, thank you for the super chat, my friend. You're saying, MBG, do you think they were saving it for the PS5 Pro showcase during September? And they'll show you gameplay based on the PS5 Pro footage as well. Well, see, that's the thing, is the rumors that the reveal for the PS5 Pro is slated for September. It's going to be a rough go. Straight up. It's going to be a really rough go next year if Sony's like, yeah, we're not doing our showcase till September. Because that's going to be a long 9 months, man. Where, again, like, Sony has nothing scheduled for May or April, May, June, July, or August, or anything beyond that, So it's like if September is where we're going to kind of plant our flag and lay down phase 2 or whatever, like that's still, I mean, that's almost a year from, so I have a, you mentioned like a state of play. I mean, Sony could, I guess, make a first party announcement or two at a state of play, but that would be, I don't know, that would be quite surprising and unexpected. It would be cool though. I would be down for that. Over deliver with the state of play. It could be a smart strategy. If you can't get a showcase ready in time, over deliver with the state of play. Yeah, that could work maybe. But I don't know, man. I'm just being totally honest, man. Like, I'm at a point where like Sony has to come out and fucking kill it. It's as simple as that. Like I can't reduce it down to simpler terms if I tried. They have to come out and they have to fucking kill it. They do. This is what we expected in May of this year. And we've still been kind of waiting since May, where it's like, all right, Sony, like, we're ready. And they're like, well, here's some free God of War DLC. It's like, all right. But as we go into next year, it's like, Sony, like, we're waiting. And I don't mean to make it seem like it's not a sense of entitlement. It's just the reality of the way things are. Like, there are core fans, there are hardcore fans. I think most of us are like hardcore PlayStation fans, and so this is not new to the brand. This is not new to Sony. Like, Sony is, again, they are not dumb. They understand that there are millions of people out there that are waiting to hear what's next from them and their studios. Devil Act 47. Appreciate that super chat, man. You're saying, I know this is hard to grasp. There is no we when talking about fans of these big companies. You don't represent anyone but yourself, and sales matter. Well, thank you for that, Devil Act 47. Well, I guess you're right. I guess it would be wise of me to just say I or me. But I guess when I say we, I guess what I'm really referring to are people who feel similarly to how I do, who have the same kind of outlook or mentality. But you are correct in that talking about the fan base in general, I mean, there's so many different people with different outlooks and different opinions and different viewpoints on this, you know? Um, so I understand where you're coming from, Devil. And I do agree, sales absolutely matter. That's just a conversation I don't entertain anymore. You know, like when people sales don't matter, sales don't like, okay, if you say so, sure. You know, like, but it's meanwhile it's just like we're all looking at each other like, yeah, they definitely matter. Um, but yeah, man, it what I so the way I can see 2024 going down for PlayStation is like this. Fans are pretty happy for the first quarter, like we established. They do a state of play, let's say in February. During the state of play, maybe they give us an update on, I don't know, other third party partner games. I'll be honest with you, if Sony does a state of play early next year, I'm not expecting anything from first party. Devilac, you're saying not trying to be a downer, just saying it's hard to get your hopes up on this concept of parasocial relationship with Sony that I promise you does not exist. Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying there. Because it's one of these things where we have like I try my best to just kind of look at the things that are rooted in fact. Even though it doesn't seem like it, but trust me, I do. Where like my reasoning for saying that 2024 could be a turning point isn't. I get it. Like, oh, it's just hopium, bro. You're hopium to the max. It's like, okay, I get it. But in reality, it's like, well, if you've been following the inner workings of PlayStation, right, and you have a general understanding of their studios, what these studios have been working on, what they have already announced, what um you just have a general overview understanding of all this. You begin to kind of, I think, see something come into focus. And what comes into focus is that, man, you just wouldn't know it based off of this year. Like, and that's where you kind of see like there is this kind of rhetoric, and I have to call it rhetoric. Maybe rhetoric isn't the right word. Maybe it's a little unfair. There is this opinion, right, that Sony is just in the gutter. PlayStation is in the gutter. And I'm not saying that's a wide-reaching opinion. If you look at if you look, something like sales numbers and Sony's earnings and stuff, it's like, well, sure doesn't seem like they're in the gutter. Seems like they're in the opposite. But I'm talking just from a just like fan, consumer, gamer perspective, whatever it might be. There's been this opinion, and you can kind of understand where that comes from. It comes from exactly what I'm saying here, where there's all this stuff going on behind the scenes, behind the curtain, and it starts to almost sound like, guys, just wait, like just wait, it's going to happen, and that is what it is. Like there's no way around it. It's like, yeah, you have to wait, but the idea is the wait is going to be worth it because that is how it's always been. Like that's how it's always been with PlayStation, where you might have to wait a little bit longer in some cases, right? Or longer than you would expect. But the only thing that really matters at the end of the day is the wait going to be worth it, or is it going to lead to further disappointment? And based off of what I can tell, I mean, there is it's a little bit shaky because of the unknown live service stuff. But generally speaking, based off of what I can tell, I think the wait will certainly be worth it. But yeah, if you're talking like generally speaking, just like larger fan bases, I mean, I don't know. I heard this opinion one time. Somebody said, I forget where I heard this, but they were basically like, man, Sony might just be at a point where they're like seeing just how successful PlayStation was this year and how little they really had to do from their first party. It's not that they didn't do anything, you know. I mean, they did PSVR 2, Call of the Mountain. They did the God of War DLC. They did Spider-Man 2. Obviously, it's huge. Um, I think that's it. You guys can remind me if I'm forgetting anything or leaving anything out. And that's basically all they did. And yet, it's like I feel like a lot of people, again, on the internet would say, well, that's not very good. Was Burning Shores this year? Okay, yeah, it was Burning Shores as well. You're saying that was probably Colin. I think you're right. I think that is where I heard it from. Yeah, where I think he said something along those lines, where he's like, Sony could probably, they're probably looking at this being like, man, we don't really have to do that much, and we're still just again, sales wise and success wise, we're just killing it. And it really does speak volumes about the just the very clear and established line between people who are paying attention and engaged on like a deeper level versus, you know, the people who frankly are not, and they're just buying their PlayStations and using them, and they're not like sitting around waiting like, man, when's that Ghost of Tsushima 2 coming? Like that's just not a thought that they have. You know, they're probably, I don't know, they're just looking at what is. And you could argue that's like kind of a maybe a better approach to take, right? Benino, you're saying MBG Benji sales reports console sales dropped 20% on November. Yeah, I saw that. Generally speaking, console sales are down, and I don't think the PlayStation 5 has anything to do with that. The reason why console sales are likely down is, and I'm not, this isn't like me trying to defend PS5, it's just the truth that like the Switch is pretty much coming to it, it's stopping, you know, like the sales are really starting to plummet for the Switch because, you know, they're it's the end of its life cycle. And you know, if you compare Switch sales to from this November to last November, you're gonna see a massive, or at least a pretty significant, pretty hefty drop. And then you also kind of throw in Xbox and how Xbox is just not selling. It's like, yeah, generally speaking, that the sales, you know, I think it was the European data. Like the only reason there was any growth was because of the PS5, and that'll change. Like once the Switch 2 comes out, that's gonna change. You know, the Switch 2 is probably gonna clean up and do well. But but yeah, Microsoft's gonna try to change that real quick come 2026, right? Something I forgot to mention in our conversation yesterday, by the way. Yesterday we talked about the next generation Xbox is apparently planned for 2026. Apparently there was like more information that came out. I think it was from Red Gaming Tech, and apparently they're going to try to undercut Sony in the price as well. Fascinating. Fascinating. We will see what happens there, man. But yeah, right now PlayStation is absolutely carrying the console market. While Nintendo is getting ready to launch their new console, and well, I mean, there's just no hope for Xbox, frankly. Um, but do I think GTA 6 is going to take full advantage of the PS5's Pro power? PS5 Pro's power? I think it will. Yeah, I really think it will, because the PS5 is the lead console for GTA 6 right now, just based off of sales. We know that. So they're going to be super familiar with development for the PS5. And if the PlayStation 5 Pro is really that easy to develop for, then yeah, they'll be able to just kind of bump it up pretty easily. Squeeze as much out of it as they can. But you know, what Sony has to do, I guess just to really kind of sum up this conversation, Because I'll be honest with you guys, I don't know how long this conversation is going to go on for. I don't want to just keep going on and on and in circles because I know sometimes I do that. But 2024 could be a turning point for PlayStation for the simple reason of this generation has been bizarre. This generation for PlayStation has been unlike any other generation we've ever seen from Sony before. It has never taken this long to finally start to get next gen, even though it's current gen, but next gen only games. We've never seen Sony do so many cross gen games with a new console generation. We've never seen a console generation where development timetables were dramatically impacted by a pandemic. We've never seen a generation like this. And I think that all of these things I just mentioned kind of come together and make a lot of people feel relatively disappointed about this generation so far. Like, hey, but guys, aren't you happy that we got Horizon Forbidden West and GT7 and God of War and Returnal and Demon Souls and all this stuff? It's like, yeah, that's all great, but this gen has still been, I think, again, in their eyes, very weak compared to what we've seen Sony do in the past. And I do think that there are some legitimate excuses for that. I do. Like, I can understand why Sony maybe did what they did with the cross-gen stuff. I think they just kind of, I don't want to say they panicked, but they really were just unsure of how well the PS5 was going to sell based off of the shortage that the pandemic caused. And they wanted to make sure these games sold because these are again, $250 million budget games. So I can understand why they did what they did, where they're like, you know what? Yeah, Forbidden West, PS4, GT7 was going to be PS5 only. Let's drop it on PS4. Same with God of War. I get it. And I agree that no, this is not an overreaction. Green 4, I don't think so. Because I'm not saying that means it's bad. Keep in mind, there's a difference between saying something is like disappointing or not what you thought it would be versus saying it's just flat out bad. The PS5 generation so far has not been bad, and if somebody thinks it's been bad, that's fine. More power to you. I disagree. If you say it could be better, or wasn't what I thought it would be, or it's a little underwhelming compared to, how intense Sony would really try to be with the first couple years, I could get behind that because the truth is what people need now, what people have been wanting from Sony, and what is, I think, at this point needed from Sony is they need to treat the PS5 generation with they have to have the same type of aggression and just, I would say, commitment that they did during previous generations, especially the PS4. The PS3 just was not part of the conversation when the PS4 dropped. And it worked out perfectly. And I think that the people who've been buying PS5s for the past couple of years, these are most likely the people that are most excited about, okay, like, here we go, next gen. And this is why I think what Sony has to do in 2024 is show us what this gen can truly be all about. Because even though I mentioned all of these games that we've gotten so far from Sony, they also have something in common. Most of them are sequels. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just, they are sequels. What people want now more than ever from Sony, and what people are going to be, I think, fully expecting from Sony in 2024 is new game announcements. And if they're games that we already know about, like Wolverine or a sequel like Ghost of Tsushima, we want to see what can these games really do. Is this going to be the batch of games that truly define the PS5 generation? Because that's what people want. That's the turning point right there that I'm talking about. Sony comes out and reveals the games that are truly going to define the PlayStation 5 generation. Because, trust me, I do not necessarily enjoy having conversations. Well, maybe enjoy isn't the right word because I do enjoy the conversations, but they're not that exciting to me. It's not that exciting to talk about the PS5 Pro or the PlayStation 6 or the next generation Xbox. I'm going obviously based off of rumors and reports that are coming out, but what I really want to start talking about is what are the games that are going to define the PlayStation 5 generation because we have not gotten them yet. Maybe there are some games that could be runner-ups. Like, I think like a game like Returnal will go down as one of the more memorable ones, Ratchet and Clank. Demon Souls remake, it is a remake, but as like, one of the better launch titles, I think anyway. But you guys know what I'm talking about. We look back at the PS4. Let me ask you, when you think of the PS4 and you think about, if I ask, what games define the PS4 generation? What are the games that come to mind for you? God of War 2018, The Last of Us, Bloodborne, Spider-Man, Ghost of Tsushima. I see a few Ghost of Tsushimas, a few Spider-Man, Uncharted 4, Infamous Second Son, Death Stranding, graphically anyway, Days Gone. See, this is what I mean. The thing about almost not every single one, but almost all of those games, Horizon, is you can see that there's just a level of novelty, really, like with these games that just it's not present right now. Killzone, yeah, it's just not like it's not present right now in with PlayStation. God of War Ragnarok, I think, is one of the best games I ever played and will, absolutely a standout so far. But I cannot say God of War Ragnarok is going to, I cannot say I'm going to look back at that or Horizon Forbidden West and say that these are the games that define the PS5 for me. They will, they will come to mind and they will be on my list of games that I really enjoyed playing on my PS5, but we're just not there yet, man. We haven't been. Um, and I don't mean to like take anything away. I'm not trying to take anything away or make it seem like, well, I didn't enjoy those games as much because of that. It's not that. I feel like we've just passed a kind of point where it's like, all right, Sony, now you got to show us next year why why we should believe in generations, right? Like you said, you still believe in generations. You got to show us now why we should still believe in it too, because the time has come. It's as simple as that. Games like Wolverine, games like Ghost of Tsushima 2, games like Sony Ben's new IP, games like Santa Monica's new IP, whatever Blue Point's working on, the next Astro game, and Fire Sprite, their horror game, whatever it is. These are the games that have to define this generation. If yeah, if From Software is making a PS5 exclusive, some partner games, of course, can help define that generation as well. Some of your hell, maybe even some of your multiplayer games that are coming out. Let them define the generation. The time has come, man. Yeah, Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2, I don't know. I'll be honest, Spider-Man 2 for me is not a game that I think I'm going to look back and think this defined the PS5 generation for me. I think Final Fantasy 16 more so. Final Fantasy 16 more so for me. But yeah, I mean, again, I think these games they do deserve a spot on this list, but I think it's just look, I think we can all kind of agree that things really started to pick up for the PS4 starting in 2016. Like 2016 seemed to be that exact turning point that I'm talking about right now. Because the thing is, you get a game like Uncharted 4, and you guys can remind, I'm sure there was more that came out in 2016, but Uncharted 4 to me is like the big standout game that came out in 2016 for the PS4. But not only did you get that, you got one of the greatest E3 presentations from PlayStation in its history. You know, where it's like it's just kind of the double whammy of like, holy shit, they're really starting to pick up here. That's what I'm talking about. Like, that is the turning point that I'm talking about. Uncharted did come out in 2016, right? Pretty sure it did. E3 is dead. Don't remind me. Josh Z, thank you so much for the super chat, bud. You're saying MBG, one reason for cross-gen I think nobody talks about is the lesser gap in technology between PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. All other gens were defined by huge technological leaps, but the PS4/5 are in the small detail. That's true. That's true, Josh. And see that's where I part of me like doesn't want to believe you're fully correct in that, because it leads me down a path of thinking that, well, geez, like, did we was the PS4 like the last time where we really are gonna be like floored, like, wow, like, I can't believe what I'm seeing right now in terms of just what can be done in games. I don't want to believe that, but I do get what you're saying. It's like this is one of the main reasons why Sony maybe embraced cross-gen, right? I'm over here assuming that the reason why Sony embraced cross-gen was because they felt like they had to, due to the PS5 stock shortage. But for all I know, they could have had every intention to embrace cross-gen because of the shared architecture between the PS4 and PS5. There was no shared architecture between the PS4 and the PS3. The PS3 used the infamous Cell processor. It was never going to be a possibility. But I don't know, man. I don't mean to sound like... See, this conversation, I feel like it's kind of tough because I don't want to make it sound like I haven't enjoyed the PlayStation 5 generation so far, because I have. But this year, I cannot deny, this year was frankly weak. It was. In my opinion, there's no denying it. I don't think you have to shit on Sony. It's not that. Like, PSVR 2, standout. Horizon Call of the Mountain for PSVR 2 is nice. Horizon DLC is nice. Final Fantasy 16 was incredible. So, definitely a highlight of the year for me. Spider-Man 2 is very good. I enjoyed it. God of War free DLC. So it's not like it's not bad. It's not horrible by any means. But it's just in terms of how good it can be. Right? This to me is easily one of the weaker years. And I want to go into 2024 hopeful that 2023 will basically just be a kind of lull year where it just had to be this way. Yeah, I'm not even talking about third-party games either. A lot of great third-party games. But I just want to I hope that looking back at 2023, it'll basically just be like, yeah, that was just kind of a bit of a lull year. We still had some... You're saying about as strong as 2016, really? But see, that's the big kicker, though. Because I think you're right about that. But where Sony succeeded in 2016 and where they dropped the ball here, and why I think it makes it different, is exactly what I mentioned a moment ago, which is in 2016, Sony knocked it out of the fucking park, dude, with the games that they showed at their... Like, honestly, I think a lot of PlayStation fans look back at E3 2016 as like quite possibly the best E3 showcase Sony ever did. Where, I mean, that's when they showed God of War. They showed Days Gone. I think they even showed Ghost of Tsushima. I don't know. Did they show Ghost of Tsushima then? That still seems like overkill to me. That seems like too much. I'd have to go back and see exactly which games. But I know it was... Let me see. Where could I find this? Oh, wow. Sony showed off Spider-Man, God of War, Death Stranding, Days... Oh my god, dude, that is crazy. Holy shit. So Sony showed off games, and this isn't counting like third-party games, but they showed off The Last Guardian. They showed off PSVR games. They showed off The new Crash Bandicoot games, they show off God of War, Resident Evil 7, Death Stranding, Days Gone, Spider-Man. Oh my lord, dude. And they had like demos and stuff. They had demos for God of War. They had demos for Days Gone. And this is what I'm saying, where it's like, even if we say that 2016 in terms of output was similar, like, yeah, it was similar. Well, let me ask you, why was the sentiment around PlayStation then still so high? Like, just, it's like they're unstoppable, and that's why, dude. They fucking killed it with their showcase. They showed fans exactly what they wanted to see. Like, holy shit, do you see these games that are coming? Do you see these games that are coming? Yeah, hit after hit after hit, surprise after surprise. And you still get games that year. You still get things coming from them that year. It's like, that is what Sony's missing. That right there is precisely what Sony's missing, and they have to bring that back next year. They have to bring that back next year for the fans. I get it. Yeah, they need to bring back the orchestra too. But they have to, dude. They're missing the juice. Yeah. They're missing the wow factor, I think. I really do. I think right now that's what Sony's missing, is the wow factor. I think in fact, I think it's starting to lean more so on Microsoft's side, where I know it's like, oh, dude, Xbox sales are pretty much dead, and I don't want to I'm not trying to give Microsoft more credit than they deserve, but it's like, it was Microsoft that had some of the big announcements at the Game Awards. It was Microsoft that had a really solid showcase this year. It was Microsoft that is making the headlines with these big acquisitions and all these games. And it's like, I'm not saying Sony needs to go out there again and chase that, but it's like, Sony, come on. We know. Come on, Sony. We know what you're capable of, man. I'm talking to Sony. Like, I know Sony. He's my friend. Yeah, I saw that too, man. Xbox is dropping. Like, the price of Xbox consoles is plummeting, dude. They are getting desperate to get these consoles out there. And I don't blame them, man. Like, they have to. They have to start dropping the price as much as they can. I'm seriously wondering, can Microsoft hang on until 2026? Like, at the rate things are going for their console, I don't know that they're going to be able to make it till 2026, bro. Yeah, we did acknowledge that earlier in the stream about James McCaffrey and his passing. Very sad. Broccoli Rob, I missed a couple chats here. Figuratively literal, you're saying, MBG, I have to say, I completely agree with your take on Young. Yeah. Not what I was expecting. Same reason I stopped watching him. PS, I vote Mystic for CEO. Yeah, let's get Mystic in as CEO. Yeah, it's no offense to Young. Yeah, I don't know, man. I just feel like there's always bad things happening in the industry. And at some point, I just kind of get to a point where it's like, all right, what's the shitty thing that a video game executive is doing today? Like, it becomes too much doomer stuff. I just can't do it. But yeah, Mystic for CEO, bro. Dude, it would be really interesting to see what PlayStation would be like with Mystic. Dude, I feel like if Mystic became CEO of PlayStation, he'd be like, all right, so the PlayStation 6, he was talking to Mark Cerny, it's going to have to look just like a PS3. You're going to have to bring back the PlayStation 3 operating system. Keep doing what you're doing with the games. But yeah, that's what it's going to have to be. I'm telling you, that's what he would do. I'd be all for that. Sony, honestly, though, you do need to bring back the PlayStation 3 OS. The XMB, the cross-media bar. It was too good. It was too good, man. It was too good. And Broccoli Rob says 2024 will be a year where Sony leans on partner games. And that's fine. This is where I want to make it clear. If Sony has to lean on partner games for all throughout 2024, that's fine, but you have to show the goods. You have to show the goods. Trust me, fans are very forgiving in this area, where it's like, if you show us the goods, you show us what you got, And it's okay. It's not coming right now. Like this is what's going to close out this generation in the next 2-3 years. That's fine. And you want to still drop, your partner games. Again, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is probably going to be, if I had to guess, at least, I don't know, a portion of you right now in my chat, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will probably be your PS5 game of the year. And that's coming in February, So it's like, if you got to rely on some of the bigger partner games, no problems. But you got to show us the goods, Sony. You can't sit on that. And maybe that'll turn out to be a very smart strategy for them. Maybe the reason why Sony said we can't do it this year and we shouldn't do it this year is because we do still have Spider-Man. And I did say this, and even though I don't know that I want to believe it, I think it is just the truth. I said prior to Spider-Man 2's launch that Spider-Man 2 is enough. I said this from the time of the showcase. Even though I didn't like that showcase, even though Sony is severely lacking a roadmap, Spider-Man 2 is enough to carry them through this year. Like, they don't need to do anything else. I hate that, but it's just the truth. And as we can see, I was correct. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here. It's not about that, but I was correct in that the PS5 is still killing it. Sony's still doing great. There's no competition in sight in this moment. So they really didn't need to do anything else. The same will not be able to be said next year after we get Rise of the Ronin. After Rise of the Ronin, Sony's got to hit the ground running with announcements and reveals. And if they don't, I will be very nervous about what is going on with them. So yeah. Why should Sony put pressure on devs? That's the thing. I'm not saying Sony should put pressure on devs, but think about this for a moment, okay? At what point do we kind of take a step back and realize that these developers should have something ready to show? You know what I'm saying? See, that's where I'm not a believer in pressure devs to meet unrealistic timetables. That's not fair. But if we take Insomniac, to be honest, Insomniac, they're like one of the only. There are some Sony studios that I think it would be totally fine not to hear from them. Insomniac is one of them. But I do think we are 100% going to hear from Insomniac. Like Insomniac, they will have something ready to show of Wolverine. I don't know how, because they just are here every year. But when I look at like Sucker Punch, for example, by the time we get into 2024, it will have been about 4 years since Ghost came out. It's like, I don't think it's unreasonable at all for Sony to turn to them and be like, guys, got a trailer ready to go? It's been like 4 years. The answer should be, yeah, we got a trailer ready to go. Same thing with like Bluepoint, right? Like Bluepoint, the last game they launched was Demon Souls, and they've been working on something since the launch of Demon Souls. I think since before the launch of Demon Souls. It's like, I don't think it's unrealistic for Sony to be like, guys, we kind of, fans are waiting. We gotta announce what you're working on here. The next Astrobot game. I mean, Fire Sprite. Sony acquired Fire Sprite in 2021, and we haven't heard anything from them. Anything. I mean, Concord, right? It's not a matter of even Sony Bend's new IP. Bend has been working on that game since I think 2020 as well, or 2021. And it's like, it is not unreasonable but you know what it could be? It may be all about hitting certain milestones. The way Sony might do it these days is if a game doesn't hit a certain milestone, then they're not going to launch it, or not launch it. They're not going to reveal it. Now, maybe a game like Wolverine, again, is an exception to that because it's Wolverine. We're gonna make sure this game releases no matter what, even if it has to be delayed. But I think other stuff, I don't know, they might be a little bit more, once you hit a certain milestone, then we'll reveal it, And Josh Z with another $10 super chat. Thank you so much for that, man. You're saying here, maybe I'm part of the problem, but I find whining about unreleased games a complete waste of time. I can barely keep up with what is already out. Example, The Last of Us 2 has been out for 3 years, and I just finished it March. Yeah, I do get where you're coming from, Josh. I feel that way sometimes as well, where it's like, man, this one game that I was really looking forward to playing and now I can't. Meanwhile, there's like a stack of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games. That's like, all right, well, it could be worse. It could be worse. I'm I don't know. I don't even talk about having a backlog anymore because the way I look at it is there's just games that I've played and there's games that I haven't played. And the games that I haven't played, you know, it's it's just like, hey, if the time comes and the moment is right and it's just it falls in my lap, it's like now this is the time to play this game. Cool, but I don't. I try not to stress myself out over anything like that. Like, oh, I didn't play this or I didn't play that. It's like it's not a big deal, you know. At least for me, that's my approach. I don't want gaming to stress me out. You know, if gaming starts stressing me out, then I feel like, well, I don't know, man. I don't know that this is. I might be losing the plot here a little bit. But I totally get what you're saying, Josh. Um, I can't lie though, Josh. I got to be real with you, man. I really wanted to play that Last of Us multiplayer, bro. I really wanted to play it. It's such a shame. Yeah. Yeah, it stressed me out too, man. Do you know what really did it for me? It wasn't that it got canceled, as crazy as that sounds, because I can accept that. Okay, guys, you tried, it didn't work, so be it. Do you know what it really was? It was when all these developers started coming out and being like, I love this game. This was one of the best games I ever played. This is one of the best multiplayer games. We were cooking something amazing, and I'm like, come on, guys, like, can why do you gotta say that shit, knowing that no one can play it? You know, just lie, just don't say anything. But if you're gonna say them, just lie to me. Just tell me it was gonna be a bad game. Yeah, yeah, they're rubbing salt in the wound, bro. They're not doing it purposely. They're just celebrating their work. I get that, but you're saying you weren't talking about canceled games, just to clarify. Sorry, that's the first place my mind went to. Yeah, what you're saying makes even more sense then, Josh, where it's like you're in no rush for games to release because it's like, dude, I'm drowning in a backlog here. Please, I can only take so much. I get it. Alexander P, a member for 1 month, says communication from Sony has been poor over the last years. I understand making trailers is time consuming for developers, but Sony fans need something to look forward to. Keep up the great work, MBG. Well, thank you so much for that, man. And I agree. I think that, see, that's the thing, man. I feel like for a long time, I've been saying it's communication. It's communication. And I'll be honest with you, man. I don't think it's communication. Because if you think about it, Sony has been communicating with us frequently. They constantly put out blog posts, you know, they're constantly saying something. But I think what the realization I had is it's not a lack of communication. It is literally a lack of announcements. That is all it is, man, where it's just, well, you know what? Communication to a certain extent. But yeah, it's just the announcements are being treated like non-existent. Sony's been, I'll be honest, man, Sony has been behaving as if they're afraid to even announce the shit they want to announce. And that to me is another red flag that I noticed this year. I think Sony tried to come out with their chest out, you know, with the showcase, like, yeah, we're gonna show you our live service games. Herman's feeling all proud. It's like, what'd you guys think? You loved it, right? It's like, are you high, bro? like, what are you talking about, man? Um, you know, it's like Sony's coming out and just kind of, oh, here's The Last of Us Part 2 remastered. Here's the blog post and here's the trailer. Please buy it. And you can tell, like, they're afraid to make a big splash with that announcement because they know, like, it's probably going to get a certain level of backlash. Um, I mean, just look at the way that they worded the cancellation of the Last of Us factions. Like they they were so careful and precise about the way they worded it because they knew like, well, we gotta thread the needle here. And when they announced the fucking PlayStation 5 Slim, look at the way that they announced that. Again, gotta kind of keep it low profile because they know that a lot of this stuff they're announcing and talking about, it's just not it's normal, is what I'm trying to say. Like this is kind of normal from the corporate side where don't make a big deal out of announcements that you know are going to be a little bit more controversial or a little bit, maybe garner a little bit of flack. That's fine. But the problem is Sony has not had anything exciting. Like, dude, the reason why PlayStation fans just went nuts over this God of War Valhalla DLC is because it really is like the most exciting thing Sony has done in a long time, man. Like in quite some time. That's just straight. But most importantly, that is communicating to the fans. Like, guys, here's this new DLC. It's for you, the fans. Thank you. You guys are awesome. And it's like, damn, dude, I miss that Sony. I do. Like, I miss that Sony that is excited about getting their fans excited. I hope I hope with the new CEO we get that. What the fuck is that noise, dude? There's like just this loud hum coming from outside. It's like super loud and I don't know what it is and it's really fucking annoying. Is my mic picking that up? Nope. My mic is not picking that up. It's very loud. Sounds like some kind of machine or something. Yeah, no, I don't know what it is. It's going away now. Maybe it was a street cleaner or something. I don't know. I feel like every time I stream there's like some weird sounds coming from somewhere. I'm turning into a cat, guys. As boss is totally unfazed by whatever that sound was. All right. Um okay. Well, that pretty much does it for that conversation there. I just wanted to talk to you guys about this because I don't know, man. I do think Sony's going to have an awesome 2024. I think that the stars are going to align, so to speak. But I do think they're going to have a good 2024 and this year is obviously winding down, coming to an end, and I'm looking forward to what Sony's going to be delivering for the first couple months, but really it's from March and beyond that I'm really curious about. You hope Sony starts to do live shows again. It would be great to see them do live shows again, but there's no chance, man. I don't mean to be such a buzzkill, but it's just that you know, they have now conditioned people to expect digital shows from them. A digital showcase, stated plays, and it's much easier for them to do the shows digitally. It saves them a lot of money. It's much more controlled. Um, so yeah, man. It's I do not think they're gonna do live shows anymore. You think gaming shows have lost a lot of soul? I think so too. Because I was kind of looking up PlayStation's E3 from 2016 and just seeing a couple images, and it's crazy that like we just don't see anything like that anymore from from Sony, and we haven't for many, many years. And I don't think we will. Again, I think we got stated plays and we got stated plays and digital showcases. Jake Skew 27 with a $5 super chat. He says, I open at my work at 7 a.m. PST, and on my break, need to get back to work. Have a good day. Get off at 12 p.m. PST. Well, Jake, man, I appreciate it, bro. I appreciate you stopping by the streams when you can, and especially showing some support while you're at it. Really appreciate that, bud. I do hope you have a good day at work. You think in-person events are a waste of money, though? Yeah, well, that's the thing, man. They can be quite expensive, and it's, you know, talking about people traveling as well, getting developers to travel. You can kind of understand like why they're just doing digital, but it's easier for them to let people down. Oh man, that is like the most cynical reason I've seen. It's easy. We'll do this digital showcase because if it goes poorly, well, just it's just easier to just get it out of the way. The higher ups are doing a walkthrough tomorrow for you. Ah, that's stressful, man. Well, good luck. Vince Virtue, you're saying, dude, I just saw that that you were retweeted by Corey Barlog. Are you best buddies now? No, I saw that too. I put out a post where I was just saying that the God of War Valhalla DLC and the Ghost of Tsushima Legends DLC were two free DLCs that went like way harder than anybody expected. And I noticed that Corey Barlog retweeted it, and I was like, "Oh, that's awesome. That's very surprising. That was nice of him to do that. Definitely not something I expected." Yeah, Corey Barlog seems like a really cool dude. Very chill, down to earth. Saying Sony doesn't have to impress you anymore, MBG. Well, what do you mean by that, Capono? Just out of curiosity, what do you mean by that? John, you're saying your only gripe with the PS5 is the storage? Yeah, that's been a problem, I think, for a lot of people. I mean, it's nice that you can buy an SSD, but I get what you're saying. Like when you buy a console, you would like to just have more memory from the start, or more storage. I mean, not memory. I really want to know what I really want to know if Sony is still truly committed to their live service push. That's what I want to know. I want to know if like at the top level of PlayStation, Sony PlayStation, I want to know like did they really give up on it and they're just like going to slowly try to dismantle it going forward, or do they still feel very much committed to trying to make it succeed? I think they still are committed to it ultimately, because I think the amount of money and revenue that you could potentially make from it, that's why I think they're still committed. Or maybe they'll just try to buy some successful live services out there. They could take the Microsoft route. They could, if Sony really wanted to, they could try to take that route and just be like, yeah, we're just gonna have to buy some successful live service titles and own them and just rake in that money. Yeah, I want to see Concord as well. I hope Concord ends up being a nice surprise. But to be honest, I am ready for Concord to be a disaster as well. Do I think Sony will do something special in 2024 to celebrate the 30th anniversary? They have to. I didn't even think of that. That's very exciting, actually, to think about. They could do a lot, man. I hope they do. They should. They really should. That's a huge milestone, dude. 30th anniversary. PlayStation celebrating their 30th anniversary while I am 30. Wow. I hope they do a lot. You know what'd be cool? PlayStation 30th anniversary showcase. Now that would be cool. Yeah, that I would love to see that, dude. Yeah, a 30th anniversary console. Absolutely. Saying Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3's file size is 215 gigabytes. Oh my god, dude. That's wild. That's like a third of your storage. Saying a new beta just released. Oh, for Skull and Bones. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Jim Ryan was gifted a classic PlayStation 1 looking PS5. Some people were thinking that they're kind of teasing what they're going to do for the 30th anniversary. It's interesting that the PS1 themed PlayStation 5 that they gave Jim was the original base model PS5, not the Slim. Jay Shako says, "Bring back PlayStation experience, Sony, you cowards." Yeah, dude, 215 gigabytes for a game is absolutely insane. That's absurd. You think Horizon Forbidden West is the best PS5 game? No, I don't think you're the only one who feels that way, dude. I think there are a lot of people that consider Forbidden West their favorite game so far. I mean, it is a cross-gen game, so I get it. Like I get why it's maybe not the first game that people think of. But no, a lot of people absolutely love Horizon. You know, speaking of Horizon, I wonder if we're going to see the Horizon multiplayer game revealed next year. I mean, that's been in development for a long time now. I do, or you know, maybe that's one of the games that got delayed. We'll see. We will see, guys. But listen, I think this is where I'm going to actually end the stream. I think I'm going to try to keep it pretty short today. Don't want to just, you know, again, artificially extend it just for the sake of it. I pretty much said everything I have to say. Just wanted to have this conversation and discussion with you guys. I did enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed it as well. It'll be interesting to see if anything of relevance comes out this week. Again, we're getting very close to Christmas and the new year. So there's still time, but we'll see. Saying this is a record, it might be, yeah, but I'll keep it on the shorter side today because I was looking at my past streams and I realized, like, my God, dude, like all my streams are so long, like they're 3, 4, sometimes like 5 hours, and I'm like, I don't have like any truly short streams out there. So maybe this will be one where I just keep it really short, you know, change it up just a little bit. Yeah, lighten the load for Devil Shooter here. But yeah, before I do end the stream, guys, I do just want to, as always, extend a big thank you. No members lounge today. We'll be doing a members lounge tomorrow. All right. So look forward to that. But before I head out today, guys, I do want to extend a big thank you to everybody who became a member. Oh yeah, that has to be it. Wow. Okay. Sorry to anybody. Always getting distracted by whatever's going on out there. To anybody who donated a super chat, anybody who gifted memberships or became a member, thank you guys so much for your continued support. I am only able to do what I do here on the channel thanks to you guys, thanks to that type of support. Really means a lot. And so, yeah, really appreciate it. So that's going to do it, guys. Want to give a shout out to Devil Shooter as well for doing the timestamps for the streams. He does a great job. So if you see him in the comments, give him a thank you. But that does it, guys. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their afternoon, evening, night, morning, whatever it is for you. I just hope your day goes well. So, all right. Until the next time, guys.